Hey everyone, what's up? This is Zach, and I am here with an album review for you guys. And so we are continuing with the Asia series of reviews, the Asia discography, and now we are on the fourth studio album from Asia, and this is also the first album with John Payne on vocals, and that is Aqua, which released in 1992. And I have always really liked this album, and this is actually maybe my favorite Asia album, to be honest. I really dig this album a lot. To me, there's not a single skip on this album. And you got a pretty good lineup here. Of course, John Payne does great vocally on this record. And Jeff Downes, of course, one of the legends in progressive music. And Carl Palmer, his drumming is excellent on this album. So as far as John Payne goes, now this is something that I have to speak on because I know that a lot of Asia fans either just dislike the John Payne era or just straight up hate the John Payne era of Asia, which for the life of me, I don't understand why. Why some people are so dismissive towards this era of Asia is beyond me, because I think that this era has some of Asia's best material, and in my opinion, I would say that John Payne is a better vocalist than John Wetton. And I know that might be controversial to say amongst the Asia fan base, but that's just how I feel personally. That's my opinion. Now, don't get me wrong, John Wetton, may he rest in peace, a great singer, definitely, but there's just something about John Payne's vocals that just, I guess, resonates with me more. I like how much more range he has to his voice, and I think his voice just stands out more, and it's just more unique overall than Wetton's vocals. And you have certain Asia fans saying, well, if it's not John Wetton, if it's not the original lineup, then it's not Asia. If it's an Asia album with John Payne, it's not really an Asia album. But the argument is just so dumb, in my opinion, because that would be like saying, well, Dream Theater was no longer Dream Theater because James LaBrie was not the original singer, or Iron Maiden isn't Iron Maiden anymore when Bruce came to the band and did Number of the Beast. Or another example would be Van Halen. Like, Van Halen isn't Van Halen anymore because Sammy Hagar replaced David Lee Roth. It's just so stupid. Like, why can't you just give this era a chance and just appreciate the music for what it is? And you all act like this era was just so horrible. Like, I don't get it. Like, is it something personal against John Payne or whatever the case may be? I don't know, but I love the John Payne era. Again, I think some of the best music that Asia has ever put out was in the John Payne era. And again, Aqua is maybe my favorite Asia album. And dare I say, this is maybe one of my favorite albums of all time. I like just about everything from this album. I mean, yeah, some songs are better than others, but that's what you get with any album. And I would say that this is a step up from Asia's third album, which was Astra, which that to me was a decent enough album. I just don't think it's held up the greatest. But Aqua is definitely a step in the right direction. And this is the album that Asia needed to come out with. Like, without this, I mean, I don't know what Asia would have done. So I feel like, in a way, Asia, this album was needed. Like, they needed to make this album, and I think it's great. I mean, it definitely has the things that make it an Asia album. It definitely has those catchy hooks and catchy songs and great choruses that you remember. And again, I'll never understand the John Payne hate. I will never understand it because I think he's a great singer, and he's probably one of my favorite vocalists of all time. So, yeah, very underrated vocalist too, I must say. But let's just go ahead and get into the track listing here. So we've got Aqua Part 1, which is a solid way to open up this album. And then we've got Who Will Stop the Rain, which is definitely one of my favorite Asia songs, maybe even my favorite Asia song, to be honest. I don't know. That's really tough to say because I love a lot of Asia's tracks, especially from the John Payne era and this album in particular, but Who Will Stop the Rain? It probably is the biggest Asia song of the John Payne lineup, and yeah, it's definitely great. It's a song that you definitely remember. Um, it's definitely great. So then we've got Lay Down Your Arms, which is also one of my favorites on this album, and it's another catchy song with some great hooks, especially in the chorus. John Payne sounds great vocally in that song, and it's definitely a fun song to listen to for sure. So Lay Down Your Arms, I've always loved that song. And then we've got Heaven on Earth, which, if I'm not mistaken, I believe John Payne stated that this was originally a song that he did for The Passion, which was another band that he was in for a bit before Asia. I could be wrong, but I believe I've heard that somewhere. But either way, Heaven on Earth, I think it is a great song. It's more of a power ballad-like song. It's got some great melodies, some great vocals from John Payne. I've always really liked Heaven on Earth. And then we've got Someday, which is one of the heavier songs on this album. I think it's got some really good guitar work, and it's one of the more complex songs on the album, and I dig this one. I've always really liked the song Someday. Kind of an underrated track in my opinion. And then we've got Crime of the Heart, which is a ballad-like song, and it's definitely very heartfelt, and yeah, I dig it. And it's kind of an underrated song from this album. So yeah, Crime of the Heart, I like it. And then we've got A Far Cry, which is another good song. Back in Town is good. Don't Call Me, another solid track. And then we've got another one of my favorites on this album, and also probably another one of my favorite Asia tracks, and that is Love Under Fire, which is another power ballad-like song, and I love this song. Everything between John Payne's vocals, the keyboard work, and just everything that it has going for it. It's very melodic, and yeah, it's a song that just never gets old for me. I can listen to this song at any time and enjoy it. So Love Under Fire, definitely one of the highlights for me from this album, and that seems to be one of the fan favorites from this album too. I love Love Under Fire. It's a great song. So then we've got The Voice of Reason, which is a good song, and I would say of all the songs on this album, this one's maybe my least favorite, but that's not saying much because The Voice of Reason is still a solid song. But then the album closes with Aqua Part 2, so that's what pretty much wraps up this album. So overall, I think Aqua is a very solid Asia album. It's a great album, and there's not a single skip on this album, in my opinion. I'd say some of my favorite tracks on this album would be Who Will Stop the Rain, which again, one of my favorite Asia tracks, Lay Down Your Arms, Heaven on Earth, Someday, and Love Under Fire. Those are probably my favorites. But again, I think all the songs on this album are great. They're all worth listening to. And I think John Payne did a great job vocally, and I think at the time this was Asia's best album since the first album. This is definitely a step up from Alpha and Astra, in my opinion. And once again, probably my favorite Asia album. And I believe this album sold pretty well in Germany. In other parts of the world, it did okay, but I believe in Germany was where the album sold significantly well. And I believe on the digital version of this album, the track listing is different. I've heard that the track listing is different overseas, which is kind of strange. And I believe the digital version of Aqua, there's another version of Aqua, the one that has a different track listing, I believe has a hidden track called Little Rich Boy, which was not featured on this album, which is a shame because I think that's a good song as well. But yeah, I don't know the reason for that. Maybe John Payne could one day go into more detail to why that is. And the other weird thing is about Aqua is this is the only John Payne Asia album that's available on streaming services like Spotify. I really do wish that all the other John Payne Asia albums were available on Spotify, but again, a lot of fans, they like to overlook this era of Asia. They like to act like that it doesn't even exist, but that's a real shame in my opinion. But hopefully one day they will put the other John Payne Asia albums on Spotify. I think it's probably a rights issue or something like that. Aqua, I think, is a great album, and it's probably my favorite Asia album once again. So definitely a great start to the John Payne era too. So if I were to give Aqua a rating or a score, I would give this album a 9 out of 10. Definitely a great album, and it's definitely well worth your time if you have not listened to this one. It has some great hooks, some catchy songs on it, and the musicianship itself is just excellent. Definitely a great album. I love this album, so Aqua, I definitely can't recommend it enough. So that is my review for Aqua by Asia, the fourth studio album from Asia, and also the first album with John Payne in the band. So let me know what you think of Aqua in the comments. So with that said, thank you for watching, take care, and have a good one.